Phoenix, if you weren't already fully aware of that. She's 65 feet long, 25 feet wide, and constructed with steel. A lot of people think that it's aluminum, but freshwater lake doesn't need to be aluminum or anything like that. Easier to fix steel anyway. Weighing in at 50 tons. Now we're getting pushed along by a couple of Volvo Pentas, 250 horsepower apiece. Now 500 horsepower sounds like a lot, but we're not going to be skimming along the water at any great neck speed. If you're in the wrong place, you can't hear anything, so there has to be a happy medium there somewhere. Okay, as I said, we're going out into the lake, and actually I call it a lake, and most people do, but if you don't know already, this in fact is a reservoir. Now it's a lot more romantic to call it a lake than a reservoir. You know, who wants to go camping at the reservoir, you know, that kind of thing. So it is a man-made lake, and if you look off to the left, to our port side there, you can see a very even structure. It looks rather man-made. Well, that would be the Waddell Dam, and the two concrete construction on the water right in front of it. It's a bridge to where the pump house is. Now I'm going to go over all that kind of business on our way back. But just so that you know, this is kind of like more of a reservoir than a lake. But I'm going to do my best to call it a lake. And it actually is the biggest lake in Lake Phoenix. Or I'm sorry, in Phoenix and Scottsdale area. Now that kind of changes because the volume of the dam changes depending on the season. They fill it up in the wintertime and empty it out in the summertime. We've just done a turnaround and we're on the empty phase right now. And as I said, that has to be something with the pump houses and whatnot. I'll talk a wee bit about that later. But if you can look around anywhere along the shoreline, you can see a very distinct line, in some places more obvious than others. The surface area of the lake, when it's at maximum conservation storage level, that's engineer talk for full, okay? It's 9,970 rounded up to 10,000 acres. And at that point, it's about 1,702, give or take an inch, above sea level. Now that really doesn't mean much to most people, and it doesn't matter one way or another, unless you're into scuba diving. It may impact your decompression tables, but the Aztecs used to call this area Arizuma. It sounds a lot like Arizona, doesn't it? What happened? Oh, little. What happened? Arizuna meant silver-bearing, small spring, as in the water-bearing area. Now you have to keep in mind that this lake and a lot of the ones we have around here weren't there then because they're all man-made.